Anderson, I've had it with your complaining about back wages. You want what I owe you? Fine. Take that worthless cabin out by Miller's Creek. Nobody's stepped foot in there for 30 years, and for good reason. Mr. Whitfield tossed a rusted key that landed in the dirt at Tom Anderson's feet. Tom had worked on Whitfield Farms for almost a decade, breaking his back from sunrise to sunset, only to be constantly shorted on his pay. That haunted shack instead of the $3,000 you owe me? That's robbery, Mr. Whitfield. The landowner's face reddened as he straightened his expensive collar. It's take it or leave it. Property values what they are. You're getting the better end of this deal. Of course, you'll have to be brave enough to sleep there. His laugh echoed across the farmyard as he climbed into his new Ford F-250. Stick around to see how a rich man's trash became a poor man's treasure. And if you believe that justice always wins in the end, please subscribe to the channel right now so you never miss a story. Tom Anderson had nothing but the clothes on his back, a pickup truck with 200,000 miles on it, and pride that wouldn't let him walk away empty-handed after years of hard work. He picked up the key, rubbing years of rust between his calloused fingers. The cabin sat 3 miles into the woods on the edge of Whitfield's massive property. As Tom's truck bumped down the overgrown trail, the stories he'd heard from other ranch hands replayed in his mind. Strange noises in the night, tools that disappeared, lights that flickered without electricity. The last caretaker who lived there in the 1980s reportedly ran out screaming about voices in the walls. The cabin came into view through a break in the pine trees. It was worse than he'd imagined. The roof sagged dangerously on one side. The porch looked ready to collapse. Windows were boarded with planks of mismatched wood, and thick vines crawled up the exterior like hungry fingers. "Jesus," Tom muttered, killing the engine. The silence that followed was heavy, interrupted only by the light tick-tick-tick of his cooling engine and distant birdsong. He sat in his truck for several minutes, wondering if he should just drive away, find work in the next county, and forget about the money Whitfield owed him. But where would he go? With the economy the way it was, ranch jobs were getting scarcer, and Tom wasn't exactly young anymore. At 46, with a bad knee and no savings, his options were limited. He pushed open his truck door with a creak and stepped onto the property that was now, technically, his. The air smelled of pine and decay. Fallen leaves crunched beneath his boots as he approached the cabin, key gripped tightly in his fist. The lock was so corroded, it took 3 minutes of jiggling before the key finally turned with a grinding protest. The door swung inward with a dramatic groan that sounded like something from a horror movie. Tom held his breath as he peered inside. Dust particles danced in the thin beams of light that filtered through gaps in the boarded windows. A stone fireplace dominated one wall. A rotting kitchen table sat in the center of the main room. A narrow staircase led to what he assumed was a loft or small second floor. "Home, sweet home," he muttered. He'd taken one step inside when he heard it. A low, mournful whine that seemed to rise from the very foundations of the house. Tom froze, the hair on his arms standing up. The sound faded, then returned, louder this time, like something in pain. Before I continue, I have a tough question. Do you think places can hold memories of the past? Or is it just our imagination that makes abandoned buildings feel haunted? Type memories or imagination in the comments below. Tom backed out of the cabin, his heart hammering against his ribs. He wasn't superstitious, but that sound, it wasn't natural. He spent that first night in his truck, windows rolled up tight despite the summer heat, staring at the dark shape of the cabin through the windshield. Morning came with a renewed sense of determination. Ghost stories or not, this place was all he had. He needed to make it work. Over the next week, Tom threw himself into repairing the cabin. He reinforced the sagging roof, replaced rotted floorboards, and removed the boards from the windows to let sunlight flood the musty interior. He found an old generator in a shed out back that, miraculously, still worked with some tinkering. Each night, as darkness fell, the sounds would start. Sometimes a low moan, sometimes a whistle, sometimes what sounded like faint scratching. Each night, Tom would retreat to his truck, too unsettled to sleep inside. Word got around town quickly. Tom Anderson was living in the ghost cabin, as locals called it. "You're a braver man than me," said Frank at the hardware store, ringing up Tom's purchase of nails and lumber. "My daddy used to tell stories about that place. Said it was built by a bootlegger during Prohibition. Fella disappeared one night along with his entire stock. Some say he was murdered by rivals, and his spirit still guards his lost fortune." "It's just an old house settling," Tom replied, though he didn't entirely believe it himself. On his 10th day of renovation, Sheriff Royce's patrol car pulled up the overgrown drive. The sheriff stepped out, adjusting his hat against the afternoon sun. "Whitfield, know you're out here?" he asked, not bothering with a greeting. "He gave me the place. To settle back wages." The sheriff's eyebrows rose. "Did he now? Got paperwork on that?" Tom realized he didn't. In his haste to get something, anything for his years of work, he'd accepted a key and a verbal agreement. "Thought so," the sheriff said, reading Tom's expression. "Whitfield called this morning. Says you're trespassing. Says he offered to let you stay here temporarily while you found other arrangements." Tom's fists clenched. "That's not what happened. Way I see it, you've got two choices. You can leave peacefully now, or I can come back tomorrow with an eviction notice." While Tom stands there, trying to decide what to do next, I'd love to know who is keeping watch with us through this unfair moment. Drop your name and what city or state you are watching from in the comments. I love seeing our family grow across the USA and the world. After the sheriff left, Tom sat on the cabin's newly repaired front steps, head in his hands. Whitfield had played him perfectly. Let him pour sweat equity into fixing up the cabin, then take it back once the hard work was done. That night, as the strange noises began their nightly chorus, something in Tom snapped. He grabbed his flashlight and marched into the cabin, determined to find the source of the sounds once and for all. "I know you're not a ghost," he shouted into the darkness, his voice bouncing off the bare walls. "Show yourself!" As if in answer, a particularly loud moan echoed through the cabin, seeming to come from the stone chimney. Tom approached it cautiously, running his hands along the rough stones. Nothing seemed unusual. He sat at the kitchen table, listening intently as the wind picked up outside. The moaning grew louder, then changed to a high-pitched whistle. Tom noticed something. The sound changed with the wind's direction. Getting to his feet, he approached the chimney again, this time looking up into the dark flue. His flashlight beam revealed something odd. About 15 feet up, the chimney appeared to narrow dramatically, almost as if... "It's fake," Tom whispered. If you are rooting for Tom to prove Whitfield wrong and uncover the cabin's secret, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Let's show the world that kindness is stronger than greed. The next morning, Tom was at the hardware store when it opened. "Need a sledgehammer," he told Frank. "The biggest you've got." Frank gave him a curious look. "Planning to knock down that haunted cabin after all?" "Something like that." Back at the cabin, Tom stood before the chimney, sledgehammer in hand. If he was right, this wasn't just an ordinary fireplace. The moan that haunted the cabin wasn't a ghost. It was the wind passing through a hidden passage. With a deep breath, Tom swung the sledgehammer against the back wall of the fireplace. The stone cracked, but held. He swung again, harder this time. Small pieces crumbled away. A third swing broke through, revealing a dark space behind. Tom's heart raced as he cleared away more stones. Behind the false back of the fireplace was a narrow passageway leading upward, just wide enough for a man to climb through. Using his flashlight, Tom squeezed into the opening. The air was stale and thick with dust. The passage led straight up for about 10 feet before opening into a small room hidden between the walls of the cabin. What Tom saw next made his breath catch in his throat. Stacked neatly against the walls were wooden crates, dozens of them, each one stamped with fading black letters. Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, 1921. Tom carefully pried open one of the crates. Inside, packed in straw, were 12 bottles of amber liquid, their glass still intact, labels yellowed but legible. He'd heard stories about Prohibition-era whiskey being worth a fortune to collectors, but the whiskey wasn't all. In the corner sat 3 metal lockboxes. Tom broke the rusted locks with the handle of his screwdriver. Inside the first, stacks of currency, old bills from the 1920s. The second contained gold coins. The third, paperwork, deeds, maps, and a journal. Tom sat on the dusty floor of the hidden room, leafing through the journal by flashlight. It told the story of Joseph Miller, a bootlegger who had built the cabin as a way station for smuggling operations. According to the final entries from 1925, Miller had gotten word that federal agents were closing in. He hid his fortune and fled, intending to return when things cooled down. Apparently, he never made it back. As Tom read the final pages, a folded newspaper clipping fell out. The headline read, "Suspected bootlegger Joseph Miller shot dead in police chase." The treasure had sat waiting for nearly 100 years. The next day, when Sheriff Royce pulled up with eviction papers in hand, he found Tom sitting calmly on the porch steps. "Morning, Sheriff. Before you say anything, I think you should see something." Tom led the confused sheriff inside and showed him 1 bottle of the whiskey and a single gold coin. Holy! The sheriff couldn't finish his sentence. "There's more," Tom said. "A lot more. And I've already called the State Historical Society. They're sending someone out this afternoon. Does Whitfield know about this?" "Not yet. But he will." Tom smiled for the first time in weeks. "I also found these." He handed the sheriff a stack of property deeds. According to these papers, Joseph Miller legally purchased this land from Whitfield's great-grandfather in 1923. It was never properly transferred after his death, which means Whitfield doesn't own this property. And never did, the sheriff finished, examining the documents. "Exactly. So he couldn't legally give it to me or take it back. But Miller has no living heirs that I could find. According to state law, I believe the property and its contents would go to the finder, minus taxes and historical preservation requirements." Sheriff Royce let out a low whistle. "You've done your homework." "Had all night to research on my phone," Tom replied. "I think Mr. Whitfield might want to reconsider that back pay he owes me, don't you? Especially since I'm feeling generous enough not to sue him for false representation of property ownership." 3 months later, Tom Anderson stood on the porch of his fully renovated cabin. The haunted whiskey had been authenticated, one of the largest intact collections of pre-Prohibition bourbon ever discovered. After taxes, historical preservation requirements, several bottles were donated to museums, and a fair settlement with the state, Tom had walked away with just over $2 million. He'd kept the cabin, now legally his, and transformed it into a beautiful home. The hidden room was preserved as a small private museum to the cabin's colorful history. As for Whitfield, he'd paid Tom's back wages in full, plus interest, to avoid a lawsuit over the property fraud. The once mighty landowner's reputation in the county was in tatters. Tom smiled as he watched a familiar Ford F-250 drive slowly past his property. Whitfield couldn't resist coming by occasionally, torturing himself with the sight of what he'd thrown away. The truck paused briefly at the end of the drive. Tom raised his coffee mug in a mock toast. The truck accelerated away in a spray of gravel. 5 years later, Tom's bootlegger's cabin had become a local landmark. He ran a small but successful tour operation, telling the story of Joseph Miller and his hidden treasure to fascinated visitors. He'd also started a foundation that provided interest-free loans to ranch hands and farm workers trying to buy their first homes. Whitfield Farms had been sold off piece by piece to cover mounting debts. The last Tom had heard, Mr. Whitfield was working as a manager at a feed store in the next county over. On quiet nights, when the wind was just right, Tom could still hear the soft moan of air passing through the restored secret passage. But now, instead of fear, the sound brought him comfort. A reminder that what others discard as worthless often contains unexpected value. True worth isn't found in a bank account. It's found in recognizing the value of what others overlook. Sometimes, the things people are quickest to throw away turn out to be the most precious treasures of all. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs hope today. See you in the next video.